It's the emails.
Okay, you can go ahead and put that down.
Say very shot.
Hey, hold on a second.
Hopefully your page sets. You're not handling.
All right, you're good.
No more astronauts. No more astronauts. Well, you can do it while we're seeing that.
Okay, we're with Randy Leliaert of the Penn School Board, longtime business owner, the Leliaert Agency, good friend, sponsor. All right, Randy, I want you to, I want to go back a ways. When Dean Spiker hires Chris Giesman, they created a dynamic that became Penn, pardon the expression, the Penn way. As a member of the school board for many, many years, looking back on the maturation of the Penn football program, what does the definition of the Penn way mean to you?
Well, it's a way of doing business, for sure. It's a mindset. Chris Giesman and the football players would go out to elementary schools to teach kids not to smoke. They would arrive to fourth grade. They did this with fourth graders back in the elementary days. My son was a participant because he was in the fourth grade. And those guys came in and told the kids not to smoke and told them what it would do, and they would never become an athlete if they did smoke. And my son came home and said, "Dad, I'm never going to smoke, and I'm going to be a Penn football player." And from that day forward, we started going to the games, and everything he did in the way of developing as an athlete was the way.
Was it a mindset or was it a culture shift?
Both.
Expound on that.
It's a culture shift, definitely, because it's doing business differently. It's getting to the kids young and telling them that their body's a temple and they need to protect it, and if they want to be a Penn Kingsman and play football for Chris Giesman, you didn't smoke and you prepared yourself. And Chris did a great job, whether it was going to the elementaries or going to the middle school and telling the stories about the kids that went out for football and never got to play but stuck with the program with the idea that by the time they were a senior that they were going to be a player. And they would know football inside and out and would be developed physically where they could do that. And then I saw it. It was true. It was.
Both Dr. Spiker and both Chris were leaders in their own way, but they had one goal, and that was a high level of expectations. Can you talk about them as leaders?
Well, Dean Spiker hired me as a teacher for Penn-Harris-Madison, and I can remember that when I went to those first meetings in preparation to being in the classroom, that he came and talked to us, and he was a coach. There was no question that he gave us the rah-rah speech, and it was nothing but high expectations that our students were going to be able to read and write on grade level, and that it was definitely part of the culture that there were expectations, and I think he communicated that to all the coaches, and when you think about the program that Giesman put together and was and Spiker helped him do that by bringing in the people that Giesman needed and wanted to bring in, who never left, who on their own right could have been high school and college program leaders somewhere else and never left, because they enjoyed the culture so much and enjoyed the expectations and had that power to do it. It was amazing.
I want you to tell me what it was like during some of those PHM board meetings, which you're available to talk about, as they looked at this program, the football program. It was almost like a pair of paddles where it jump-started a level of excellence that was ran through the school. Robotics team was going to be the best there was. Every aspect was going to be #1 in the state of Indiana, but a lot of it started with football and Chris. How did the board perceive that dynamic?
Well, we saw it as education first, and we knew it was education because the coaches drilled that into the kids, that if you wanted to play, you had to do your work in the classroom. You had to excel there too. And they wanted that because they knew the higher the intelligence, the greater the thinking abilities of the students, the better the athlete they were going to be. And so they worked on that. And even when on the discipline side, which is where we came in, a lot of times discipline issues were brought to us, and the coaches would say, they're still learning here. They're clay, and we're molding them, and they're going to make mistakes. We don't want to throw them away because they made mistakes. We want them to learn from their mistakes and continue to be lifelong learners. And that was something that was always drilled into them, is to be a lifelong learner. So a lot of times when it came to the discipline, they might have consequences, but we weren't throwing away the student, and we weren't throwing away the athlete. They had to suffer the consequences, but they were still part of the program, and that was powerful. And what a message to give to kids, that you've made a mistake, here's the consequences, but we're not going to throw you away. We're still going to work with you and help you develop as both a student and an athlete.
Was it a no-brainer for the school board to make the transition from Chris to Corey as the head coach?
That was so easy, because Corey had been part of the program for so long and knew that the pressure was on and the expectations were there to continue. Giesman had Corey well prepared.
The more and more I talk to people about this, I think if I were to give you one word that defines the Penn way, it would be expectations. That's the one word that almost every single person has used in some type, form, or fashion to define what the Penn way truly is. So why do you think, because you've had change, you've had turnover at the superintendent spot, had turnovers in principals, and now Dr. Thacker's in the position where he's at right now. He's just kind of kept us, but the point is how can you maintain a level of excellence for multiple generations? This is mind-boggling.
Well, you have to understand that one of the things, our main function as a school board is to hire the superintendent and to hold their feet to the fire and make them accountable. So I can tell you that on my watch as a school board trustee, we hired and experienced maybe 5 or 6 different superintendents. They all knew coming in what was expected of them. They all knew coming in that there wasn't going to be a huge culture shift or a different direction, that their job was to maintain and go to the next level. So that was an easy, I mean, and in the interviews, we made that clear.
I'm going to shift gears. I want you to share with me now the school board guy, business owner guy, father, as you're going to watch your son play Penn football. First time he's going to go out there on the field to play Penn football. Matt ended up having a pretty solid career at Penn. What was it like for you, having been so involved in the community in so many different avenues? Former teacher. What was it like for you to be able to go watch him run out there at Freed Field for the first time? Was that a big thrill?
Very prideful. A lot of, because I knew some of the sacrifices that he had made to be part of the team, you know, and we always put pressure on Matt to have a summer job, and so there were conflicts with whether he's going to be able to make it to practice on time, and whether and Giesman. I remember one time Matt was late to practice, and Giesman comes up to me. He says, "What are you doing, Leliaert? You know, you're late for practice. This is your senior year. What are you doing?" He doesn't say anything. He just says, "Sorry, coach, won't happen again," you know, type thing. And Matt would come home and say, "Dad, I can't let that happen again. I got to make sure I'm there, you know, for 7-on-7s during the summer and those workouts." And so we had to backpedal a little bit on our expectations on what he was going to do during the summer so that he could meet his expectations. So, and how do you fault that type of dedication? You know, he was injured in practice, and it was a 7-on-7, and his appendix was ruptured, and he had a job interview, and he went to the job interview, and he says, "I have to leave. I only have an hour. I have to leave because I have an appendectomy scheduled." He got the job. So, you know, here's this employer says, "Whoa, you know, this kid has a ruptured spleen. He comes to the interview anyway." And yeah, we had him to the doctor so many different times. And as a parent, you think, is it worth it? But you tend to look to your child and say, how far do you want to carry this? And there was no question, with the dedication and everything, that yeah, he was going to go for it. And these small trips to the doctor for this or that because he was hit hard or he was blindsided or whatever. Karen and I would just look at each other and say, okay, yeah, you can't duplicate this type of dedication, so you go with the flow.